So, the premise of all Black Americans moving back to Africa is, honestly, a deeply flawed hypothetical scenario. It's rooted in those old historical segregationist ideologies like the Back to Africa movements of the 19th and 20th centuries, and, it really ignores some fundamental realities. The word back is actually pretty misleading. Most Black Americans are descendants of people who were forcibly enslaved and brought to the Americas centuries ago. And Africa is a vast continent of 54 diverse nations. It's not a monolith or just a single homeland for descendants of the diaspora. When we talk about citizenship and identity, Black Americans are, well, Americans. Their history, culture, struggles, and contributions are absolutely foundational to the United States. They have no obligation or inherent connection to migrate to a continent their ancestors were stolen from. Forced relocation is unethical, plain and simple. Any mass relocation based on race is fundamentally racist, violates human rights, and honestly, echoes some pretty horrific historical precedents like ethnic cleansing and segregationist policies. Now, if it actually happened, just for the sake of this purely hypothetical analysis, the sudden removal of approximately 14% of the US population, that's over 47 million people, would have catastrophic and really multifaceted consequences. Let's talk about the economic impacts on the US. First off, there'd be a labor force collapse. Black Americans are a vital part of the workforce across all sectors: healthcare, education, logistics, service industries, tech, government, agriculture, and the military. Removing 14% of workers instantly would cripple supply chains, essential services, and productivity. Then there's consumer market devastation. Billions of dollars in consumer spending power would vanish overnight, collapsing demand for goods and services, and leading to widespread business failures. And don't forget about entrepreneurial and innovation loss. Countless Black-owned businesses, from small local shops to major corporations, would disappear, eliminating jobs, innovation, and economic activity. So, let's talk about the impact on American culture and creativity. If you think about it, American music, jazz, blues, rock, hip-hop, R&B, along with literature, art, dance, fashion, and even cuisine, are all profoundly shaped by Black creativity. Without that influence, these industries would be gutted, suffering irreparable damage. Now, moving on to social services, while there might be some reduction in demand, the collapse of tax revenue, income, sales, corporate, from such a massive segment of the population would absolutely dwarf any savings. We're talking about a situation that would likely bankrupt social programs and government functions at every level. The real estate market would take a massive hit too. Abandoned homes and businesses in predominantly Black communities, and even in integrated neighborhoods, would lead to a huge devaluation of property and a serious housing market crash. And then there's the economic ripple effect. Severe labor shortages would drive wages up dramatically in the industries that survive, fueling intense inflation. In the end, a lot of services would become scarce or just plain unaffordable. When we look at the social and cultural impacts on the United States, we're really talking about a profound loss of cultural identity. American culture is inextricably intertwined with Black American culture. Without it, the nation's identity, values, art, language, and social fabric would be unrecognizable and honestly, deeply impoverished. Social instability would follow. The sudden vacuum and economic collapse would lead to widespread social unrest, panic, and potentially violence among the remaining population. And, there's also the moral and global standing to consider. The U.S. would become an international pariah, condemned for enacting a blatantly racist and inhumane policy, destroying its global reputation and influence. On top of all that, we'd see a historical erasure. A core part of American history, including slavery, the Civil War, Reconstruction, the Civil Rights Movement, and ongoing struggles for equality, would be physically erased, leading to a kind of profound historical and moral amnesia. Now, turning to the impacts on Africa, this is also highly complex and frankly, speculative. There would be a massive humanitarian crisis. The sudden influx of tens of millions of people, even with shared ancestry, would totally overwhelm the infrastructure, economies, and social systems of any receiving nations. Housing, food, water, healthcare, and jobs would just be impossible to provide at that scale. And then, there's cultural and social friction to think about. Descendants of the diaspora have developed distinct cultures over centuries. so integration with diverse African populations would be complex and potentially fraught with misunderstanding and conflict. Economically, while these new arrivals might bring skills, education, and capital, the sheer scale would likely cause immense strain before any potential long-term benefits could even begin to materialize. It could destabilize existing economies and political systems too. Politically, the arrival of such a massive new population bloc would drastically alter the demographics and power dynamics within receiving countries, likely leading to significant political upheaval. So, to sum it up, this scenario is not only impossible and unethical, but also represents an economic and social doomsday for the United States. The removal of Black Americans would cripple the U.S. economy, devastate its culture, and destroy its social fabric and global standing. America's strength really lies in its diversity, and Black Americans are an indispensable, foundational part of its past, present, and future. The focus should be on building equity, justice, and opportunity for all Americans, not on harmful, hypothetical separations rooted in a racist past.
Stay cool, stay true, peace out.